inside.
WHC News Time is 7:14. It's Thursday Morning News Watch. I'm Jeff Dunn, and we want to get right to our special guest this hour. He is Texas Congressman and GOP presidential candidate Ron Paul. He's in Ithaca to speak later tonight, in fact, at Lina Rink to a Youth for Ron Paul event sponsored by the Cornell Republicans and the Cornell Libertarians. Congressman, good morning, and thanks so much for being with us.
Good morning, Jeff. Nice to be with you.
I want to first start off with your message to the students tonight. What is it that you want to try to convey to them?
Of course, for me, it's the same message I've been trying to deliver for a good many years, but all of a sudden the young people are very, very attracted to it. And it's the message of independent liberty and self-reliance. It's a message what America used to be all about. And it's a change in what is the conventional wisdom of the two major parties, and that is a change in the foreign policy. Don't fight wars unless they're declared. Looking at the monetary system and why the Fed has contributed so much harm to our economy. Looking at the personal liberty issue, letting people make their own decisions about their own life and their own money. And this seems to really stir the young people up, and I think they're realizing that they're not inheriting a very good system. It certainly is not a system that is functioning very well fiscally, and that they realize we're flat-out broke. So they're very interested in what we've been saying these last several years.
Now, the Youth for Ron Paul chapter at Cornell has somewhat like 1,381 members. It's the seventh largest in the United States. Are you surprised at those high numbers at a campus such as Cornell's?
But nothing surprises me anymore because, theoretically I've always argued that the message of liberty brings people together and that we get beyond this right and left paradigm. And this has been true. We've gone to some very, very conservative campus like Texas A&M and get good crowds out. And then we got, right now, I think it looks like the biggest crowd has been out in Berkeley. And I think this goes a long way in talking about the genius of the founding father, bringing people together and coming together for the issue of liberty, and quit arguing about how we're going to use our own liberty and how we're going to use our own money. So I am always pleased that the various campuses turn out heavily, and we have also noticed in the last 6 months that although they're called youth rallies, we get the parents to come out too, and we're very pleased with that.
Of course, it's no surprise you're here ahead of the New York primary next week, and one of the challenges is getting this enthusiasm among the young people to translate to getting them to go to the polls on Tuesday for the primary. A lot of people, Congressman, would ask, well, why are you still in the race at this point? Everybody is seemingly looking at this as a two-man race now, Mitt Romney against the incumbent President Obama, and why is it that you and Newt Gingrich are still in the race at this point?
Well, because the race is not over, and every once in a while people do stumble. And sometimes you have surprises like, last week there were 4, and all of a sudden somebody drops out. So I think that you should run all the way. You shouldn't, I used to run track. If we were running a mile, if I was behind it, third lap, what would it be like just to quit? People didn't like quitters. And these young people are very enthusiastic. They've invested a lot of time and money because we don't get money from the PACs or, the big donations like others do. And they put a lot of time and energy. They're working their way through the process. They're very much involved. They want to go to the convention. Many of them are going to become delegates. They're just really starting to appoint the delegates. So I don't think this is an appropriate time to talk about just walking away.
We're talking with Texas Congressman and Republican presidential candidate Ron Paul. He's speaking at Lina Rink on the Cornell University campus tonight, a Youth for Ron Paul event. Looking back at 2008, compare that for me with 2012. What kind of changes, if any, did you make in your campaign in those two presidential years?
I don't think a whole lot. I think we improved ourselves. Everybody should improve themselves on organization and how to manage things, but the message has always remained the same, but there is something dramatically different. I've noticed that early on And it's not so much in our campaign or our message, but the country has changed when it comes, because before we were warning about and talking about a housing bubble and the impending recession coming, and all of a sudden we had all that. And that's what the big concern is now, economic policy and unemployment. That is a very, very big issue. And then also, even 4 years ago, I was talking a lot about why we shouldn't be in Afghanistan, we shouldn't be fighting these wars, it's going to bankrupt us. And now 70% of the American people are saying, enough is enough. I mean, we have to borrow all this money to fight these wars, and we don't even know why we're there, and it's not doing ourselves any good. So I think the world has changed, both with our foreign policy as well as our attention to the monetary system and the Federal Reserve. That has changed dramatically. We're getting more information, although not enough, out about the Federal Reserve and the American people. Support is about 75% on, yes, Congress does have a responsibility for oversight of the Federal Reserve. It's too important to just let it be held in secret.
And do you feel that when come November 6th, it'll be the voters voting with their wallets and pocketbooks?
I always think they do. They talk about voting with our hearts and voting with our heads. And I always kid and say, no, I think they vote from their belly, and that is when they're worried about economic people have, that's one of the basic instincts is survival and to have a job and take care of their family. So I think economy is very often the major issue, and it is tied in. I mean, if you have the economy concern, you better be concerned about the monetary system. If you're concerned about spending, you have to be concerned about these endless wars overseas, so they can be brought all together. I think superficially, if you go out and ask people if somebody could wave a wand and do something, I think most people would ask for jobs and a healthy economy.
We're talking with Ron Paul, ahead of his appearance tonight at Cornell University. And Congressman, just a couple of more questions. As a member of Congress, I want to get your take on this whole issue involving the Secret Service. We're learning today that one employee has been fired, one's going to retire, and others elected to resign. As a member of Congress, are you concerned about these developments that came out of Cartagena?
Oh, absolutely. And I guess my initial subconscious or unspoken thought was, more government programs. No matter how elite a group we have, there's a tendency for governments to get careless and, get out of control. And, of course, I at a speech last night, I sort of alluded to it and kidded about it because I was the only one that refused Secret Service. I said, I knew there was something about the Secret Service that wasn't pleasing me, trying to pass that over a little bit. But no, I think it's tragic. I think it's terrible, about how this is. And I thought that whole trip, and I don't remember ever commenting on a diplomatic trip by any president. But the problems that he ran into. First, I am for opening up trade and talk and travel into Cuba, and all the countries in South America and Central America wanted to talk about a more open approach and acceptance of Cuba. And our president didn't want to have anything to do with it. And those countries down there that suffer the consequence of the war, the drug war, says, why don't we consider changing some of the laws on restraints on the use of drugs, which I'm all in favor of, and our president wouldn't have anything to do with that. So I just looked at that thing and thought, and then the symbolic thing of the Secret Service people getting into trouble, it wasn't really good for America this past week.
Right, certainly overshadowed anything that might have been coming out of the Summit of the Americas there. Okay, right. And finally, the situation in Syria, Congressman, is do you think the Obama administration is taking a tough enough stance against the regime there, or where do you see things happening or going in that troubled area of the world?
Well, for many of the so-called Republican leaders, other candidates as well as one in Congress, are taking the position that he's not doing enough. Mm-hmm. And my position is he's doing way too much. We should mind our own business. We shouldn't be orchestrating. I think the news that we're getting out of Syria, just who the good guys and the bad guys are, is grossly distorted. We don't need another war, and we're involved in there deeply already. They're talking about putting weapons in there, and weapons leads to troops and more money. And most people realize that this step into Syria is just another step toward going into Iran. And the loudest applause I get, at the speeches, and I predict tonight they'll support me, that we don't need to be in there. We don't have authority to be in there. Congress doesn't vote for this authority to get involved in these wars, and that we shouldn't be involved. And instead, we should be coming home.
Congressman Ron Paul and GOP presidential candidate, thanks so much for spending a few minutes with us this morning.
Thank you, Jeff.